So what you see in front of you is a full draft sample of the reader response essay. The reader response essay has 5 paragraphs, an introduction, 3 body paragraphs, and a conclusion. You've already seen the introduction and the first body paragraph when you looked at the PowerPoint for the partial draft reader response. Here's where you can find it in Module 2 if you want to look at it again. And then this is what it looked like. And the introduction and the first body paragraph were all composed for you here while you watched. What I want to do is I want to pick up this draft and walk you through the last 3 paragraphs. Remember that in the introduction, there are a couple of sentences that are really important. This sentence, which organizes, and then this sentence, which explains why this article that you're analyzing is important to your research. And if you're really have sharp eyes, you'll realize that I've rewritten this sentence from the one that you saw originally. So anyway, we've already looked at the first point in the article, and we're going to pick up with the point on constitutional rights. That's my second body paragraph. And then the third body paragraph is about the harm caused to the African American community. So, scrolling up to my second body paragraph, remember that each body paragraph does just 2 things. It summarizes part of the article, whatever part of the article you've designated in your topic sentence, and then it explains how or why you think you're going to be able to use this information, either as part of your research paper or as something that helps you understand your subject matter better. Okay, so Boyd makes 2 main arguments to show that the drug laws of that time were discriminatory in the same way that the Jim Crow laws of the first half of the 20th century were discriminatory. Here's my topic sentence. He argues that drug laws in general erode constitutional rights. So this is the sentence that tells you what I will be summarizing. I will be summarizing the part of the article that talks about the erosion of constitutional rights. Okay, so he explains how drug laws have infringed on the free practice of religion, the power of law enforcement to search and arrest, property rights, freedom of speech, and disenfranchisement of former felons. Okay, that sentence is the first sentence of my example. It's the sentence that says, okay, this is what the source is going to show you. In each instance, the infringement of rights affected a small minority of people. The second thing that you have to do when you're integrating your source into the paragraph is you have to give the reader a signal that the reader's not listening to you anymore. Now the reader is listening to your author. In this case, my author's name is Boyd. For example, Boyd, there, that's my signal word, cites the 1988 Supreme Court case of Smith versus Oregon, which ruled that Native Americans can no longer use peyote for religious purposes. He points out that drug offenses, quote, do not typically have complaining witnesses, unquote, so the only way to collect evidence is surreptitiously through things like wiretapping, surveillance, and intrusive drug tests. So all of this is the only thing I've taken from the source. That's it. So that's the third thing you do when you are integrating a source. You quote and or paraphrase. The fourth thing you do is that you signal the end of your source with a parenthetical citation. If you have a page number, use the page number. If you don't, use the author's last name. If you have neither a page number nor an author, then you'll just use the title of the article in the parentheses. The last thing that you do in each one of your citations is you warrant the citation. You say something about it in your own voice. So here's my warrant. In these examples, as well as the other examples cited by Boyd, the common denominator is that the people whose rights are compromised are outside the mainstream of society, small groups of people engaged in behavior that the broader elements of society have deemed undesirable. So all of this is my first example. And then look what happens down here. This point is important. Here's my signal that now I'm done summarizing, and I'm going to tell you why I think this is important in my own thinking. So this point is important for me in understanding institutionalized oppression, because remember, that's my subject. I want to study institutionalized racism, because the purpose of these actions is to protect everyone from drug crimes. In that effort to do something perceived as positive for all of society, certain groups are treated unfairly. And then I add another citation. Boyd points out, for example, that in Florida in 2000, 31% of African American men, about 200,000 people, were not allowed to vote in the presidential election between Bush and Gore because of a felony conviction. Because the difference between the two candidates was less than 600 votes, these disenfranchised voters would have probably made a difference. Okay, so all of that is application to my topic. And then this is a concluding sentence that restates the topic sentence. This next paragraph is on harms, and it's organized in the same way. The first part of it is summary. And then the second part of it is why it's important to me. This point is important. Just go ahead and telegraph it. Give the reader enough signal so that it's easy to transition between summary and application. And then we look at the conclusion. This deep dive into drug laws and their impact on the African American community helps make the point that even the best intentioned laws can contribute to institutional racism in the way they are interpreted and applied. If drug use is deemed a crime, then punishment should be distributed equally without regard for a person's skin color. If the crime seems more serious when committed by a black or a brown person than when committed by a white person, we should take that as a signal to reassess whether the law is truly meant to protect us from a legitimate danger or just a way of imposing control over certain groups of people who lack the power and influence to protect themselves. And then there's the works cited page.